This bot is looking at the over 2.5 goals market, and I'm using a strategy from Ben at SportsTradingLife. This bot places a drip bet on the over 2.5 goals market if by the 10 minutes and the 20 minutes it's still 0-0, and it's to be used on matches where there is an obvious home favourite. It is set and forget automation, so once you've input your selections into Guardian, you can leave it to run for the rest of the day. There is no interaction from yourself. It works across two markets, so it's a dual market bot, over 2.5 goals and the correct score market. So once the bets have gone in, if the home team scores first, it will green up across the board for an even profit. If the away team score first, it will just remove the liability, leaving a free bet on the over 2.5 goals market. If it's still 0-0 at half time, it will just red up your position. It's important to research the matches. We're looking for home favourites with a good scoring record in the first half. And as always, do your own research. Okay, so let's have a look at how this bot is put together. There are two elements to this bot. There is a over 2.5 market bot and a correct score bot. The reason why I have to use the two is because there are different outputs. If the home team scores, we want to green up the market. If the away team scores, we just want to remove the liability. Now, this is an accurate way of determining who scored first. So in order for this bot to fire, it's got to be 0-0 at the 10-minute mark. So we do this by setting a stored value on the correct score market to make sure that it's 0-0. And then the over 2.5 goals market receives that signal and then proceeds if it is actually 0-0. So the first rule is back over 2.5 10 minutes at 0-0. As you can see, it's in row position 2, 10 to 12 minutes, just in case we have any suspensions. And this is going to fire just the once. We're going to put in a £25 back bet at the third best market price, because we know that there may be a delay with the bet actually getting into the market, sometimes 3, 5, 10 seconds. So we're going to want to make sure that we're matched. It doesn't mean it's going to take the third best price, but it goes in there and then mops up whatever price is available. And the conditions are that the market is in play, unsuspended time condition is greater than 30 seconds, and 0-0 10 stored value is greater than an entered amount of 0. We actually set it to 1, but that will become more clear when we have a look at the correct score bot. And the market volume over £800. We are going to set a signal for bet for the market. Now, if we have a look at the back over 2.5 on the 20th minute, it is more or less exactly the same, apart from the 20 to 22 minutes. And the condition on the stored value is 0-0 or 0-0 and 20 minutes. So then the next rule is what happens if the home team scores a goal. So what we're going to do, we're going to close trade on selection with greening. The idea is just to hedge our position across the board and take a guaranteed profit. This is going to happen 3 times, and we're going to allow 20 seconds for it to fire again, just to make sure that the market is equalised. So this rule consists of the following conditions. The market is in play. The unsuspended time condition is greater than 180 seconds. The reason why we leave it this long in less liquid markets, it may take a little bit of time for the market to reform. So we want to be getting the price that we should be getting. The signal name bet is set for the market, and the stored value from the correct score market 1-0 is greater than entered amount 0. We're going to set the entered amount as 1. Traded profit with greening is greater than £0. And also we're going to make sure that the remove liability signal is not set with a value, and this will become clear. We're going to set a signal for the market green home, so this signal will be sent out if the home team do green up. So the remove liability is very similar, but we just close the trade on the selection. There's no greening involved. Again, it's exactly the same. We allow the rule to trigger 3 times over 20 seconds in row position 2. The market is in play, 180 seconds. Signal for the market bet is set. And nil 1 for the event is greater than an entered amount of 0. Trading profit, as you can see, I have not selected with greening, over £0. And the signal green home for the market is not set, because the last thing we want to do is green on both. We just want the first one to fire, and then that is it. These signals stop the second bot from firing if there is any kind of error with the score scanner. And the final rule in this bot is exit at half time. Now, if there's no goals, this is just going to hedge your position and take a loss. This will happen on 55 minutes to 59 minutes. It'll occur 3 times over a space of each rearming every 20 seconds. And there's just 2 conditions: that the remove liar signal for the market is not set. The reason why we've done this is because when we remove the liability, we're leaving the market open on a free bet. The last thing we want to do is hedge the position when we've got a free bet running. But on the other, when we green the home across the board, we're not too bothered. We can allow it to fire again. It's not going to do any harm. And the signal bet for the market is set. So moving on to the correct score check. The first thing that this does is looks at the 10-minute marker if the score is actually 0-0. And if it is 0-0, it'll send out a stored value. So it's very simple. It will make sure that the market is in play and that the lay price and the back price in position 1 on the 0-0 are less than odds of 20. The reason why we do this is because if there is a value on both sides of the book, that means that that scoreline is still active. So once the 10-minute mark comes, if the lay price and back price are both set less than 20, it will send out a stored value of 0010. That will be received by the over 2.5 goals market to give it the green light to put in the first bet. And the exact same thing on the 20th minute as well. It will send out a signal of 0020. But as you can see, the time difference is 20 minutes to 22 minutes. And again, that will be received by the over 2.5 goals market. The bot will then be constantly scanning for a change in the score. So if the score hits 0-1 or 1-0, it will send out a corresponding stored value of 1-0 or 0-1. This will then be received by the over 2.5 goals market, which will determine if it's going to green the home team or if it's going to have a free bet if the away team scores first. So to add your bots to your selections, the first thing you need to do is go over to soccer and search for your selections individually. So we're going to look for Sunderland and drag and drop over the 2.5 goals market and the correct score market. Once we've done that, we find our 2.5 goals market bot and simply apply it to the 2.5 goals market, and the same with the correct score market. And the second match on our list is Northampton, so we're going to repeat the process as we did before. Drag over the 2.5 goals, the correct score markets, and apply the relevant bot. And by the time you've finished adding your selections, you should have something that looks like this. It's also important to restrict your refresh. For this bot, I'd recommend 300 seconds before the start time and 5,000 seconds after the start time. This ensures the period of the game you are looking at takes priority with the refresh rate. So now we're going to look at one of the examples, Fenerbahce, and they have just conceded a goal, so it is now 1-0 to the away side. As you can see, we have a profit across the board if that's what we wanted to do. We've got the 2 bets go in. What we're going to do is we're just going to check the automation rule to see if it fired correctly. And there you go, we can see that the 0-1 has fired, so it sent out the stored value. And the over 2.5 goals market has now picked that up and has removed the liability, so it's a free bet on over 2.5 goals market. So I blindly allowed the bot to run on many selections today. There are no pre-research done for these matches. I just allowed them to run on more or less every market. So if we take a look at the first game, Brescia versus Indonesia, we can see that the bot readied out at half time for £25 across the board. This would indicate to me that it was actually 0-0 at half time. And if we look at the next game, Xavi, we can see that the over 2.5 goals has a free bet and the under 2.5 goals is a scratch. This would suggest that the away team scored first. If we have a look at the Montpellier game, we can see that there is a £35 split across the board. This again would suggest that it was the home team that scored first, so it just greened up across the board. I'll run through each selection and at the side show you the actual results per match. So as you can see from the list on the right hand side, every single match fired exactly as it should have. Where the home team scored first, it greened up for a guaranteed profit. Where the away team scored first, it simply removed the liability to leave a free bet on the over 2.5 goals market. Where it was 0-0 at half time, it simply readied out your position and took the loss. This bot is available to download from the BetAngel forum. If you don't currently have BetAngel, head over to their website and get yourself a free trial.